Hello and welcome to another great week here on Viking.TV. And this week is Bermuda week, where we thought we would celebrate all things Bermudian to celebrate Viking restarting cruises around this particularly beautiful part of the world. So go to the wardrobe, get out your old Bermuda shorts and see if they still fit. Viking Orion has already started sailing around the island, metaphorically and literally really putting a toe in the water to test the temperature and see how that we can all now say welcome back to Bermuda sometime soon and in style. She looks wonderful there, doesn't she? My guest today has the island and all of its wonderful colours and smells and vibrancy and sunshine and warmth in her blood. And she is very much a child of the sea. She's a singer-songwriter who has achieved global success, but who was brought up literally on a yacht, sailing around the island. No TV, no electricity, just her guitar, her books, and her voice to keep her company. And if you don't already know her name, if I tell you she names as some of her biggest influences people like Cat Stevens, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, the Beatles, the Stones, David Bowie, Patti Smith, and Kate Bush, then you know you're going to love her too. You're going to love her sound, which is of course very much her own. So before we meet Heather Nova, shall we take a look at her in action back in 2003, this was recorded, at the Union Chapel in London. And this is I Want to Be Your Light. So let's meet the girl who was raised on a yacht bobbing on Bermudian waters. Sounds such an idyllic childhood, doesn't it? And then she went on to sell over 2 million albums, has written and recorded over 120 songs, and played over 600 live concerts over a 30-year career. And we join her now from her home in beautiful Bermuda. Welcome to Heather Nova. Hello, it's lovely to see you.
Hi, Anne. Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you.
How is it? You look so relaxed and warm, and it looks so fabulous where you are already. How is it?
It's warm and sticky, which is how Bermuda is, and it's lovely. And I think the thing I love most about Bermuda is the smell of the air. It's just always full of flowers, and summer is my favorite time here. It's, you can jump in the ocean. It's right there.
Right at the moment, you could just jump in and it would be as warm as bath water, would it?
Absolutely, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh. So. I love that track. I picked that out first as my favorite. I'm told, though, it really is a fan favorite of yours. Everybody wants to hear you do that one.
Yeah, you never know which songs are going to resonate with people when you write them. So I always find that fascinating. But yeah, that is a favorite of many, many people.
Yeah, it stood out for me. So how has the last year been for a singer-songwriter stuck appallingly for you in Bermuda? Is that where you've spent most of the year?
I've been here all year, and of course, it's the best place in the world to be stuck. It's been a mix. I'm someone who kind of tries to see the glass half full, so I tried to use the time to be creative, and my life didn't change that much to how it would be if I wasn't on tour. But the tough thing for me was not having the tour. We had to postpone it. So that's my livelihood, and it's also creatively what I work towards each year. So, but I really actually enjoyed the downtime, and I wrote a lot, and I painted, and of course I learned how to make sourdough bread like everyone else.
Like everybody had to. That's right. It was a must. But I mean, yeah, as I was just going to say, you're an artist. That's one of your paintings behind you, and you're also a poet. So in a way, having a year off where you can't go out and tour, in a way, is quite good for another part of your creative process.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I just saw it as a kind of a rest, and just going inward and spending even more, the gift of being able to spend more time in nature, which is for me a really grounding, sort of spiritual thing for me to be surrounded by nature, and so not to have to travel. I just decided to see that as a positive,
as a plus. Absolutely. So, have you written much poetry during the year?
I've written a lot of songs and a couple of poems. The songwriting is the thing that comes most naturally to me. It's actually really a mystery where it comes from, because I find that melodies just land on me, or in me, come through me. And I never sit down and try to write a melody. They come to me, and they have ever since I was 7 years old. And so I enjoy that process of then taking what comes to me and following the thread and bringing my craft to it, and kind of finding that balance between making something beautiful, which is what I like to do.
Yeah, that's a wonderful gift, isn't it? I mean, I know you say you've been at it since you were 7, so it is very much a gift rather than something you've had to work and make yourself do. Do you ever think of it as a gift?
I do. Yeah, I honor that. I mean, I think that's why they call it the muse, because I think it does come from somewhere, the subconscious, of course, but maybe somewhere beyond. We don't know. And yes, I think it's a gift, but I also think I have my parents to thank, because they had records playing in the 60s and 70s just on repeat 24/7. And in fact, when we lived on the boat, and you called it a yacht, which I think people could picture a big fancy yacht. This was a 40-foot sailboat. There she is. And, the one, we had no electricity, we had no running water, but the one luxury we had was I don't know if you can see it in that picture, but there was a tiny wind generator on top of the mizzen mast that powered a tape deck. So we had music on windy days. And so there was always music playing, and the artists that you mentioned in the beginning, those fantastic singer-songwriters. So I was kind of infused with music.
Time, I can imagine. Well, that's what it sounds so idyllic. Whether as a child or whether as your parents, were they very hippie-ish then? What did they do?
Well, I mean, I don't know what label we want to put on them, but I think they were adventurous, and they had a dream, and I think that they just decided to, hey, let's up and follow that dream, and sold up everything. You know, my dad had a business, we had a house, and they built the boat. They actually built the boat out in Dockyard, which is one of the stops that the Viking makes, the Royal Naval Dockyard, and a big building behind the clock tower there. They built the boat and sewed the sails, and I mean, you know, and then took 3 of us kids. I was the eldest, but my son was only 2, and went to sea, which in those days was pretty extraordinary because there was no communication once you were out of reach of the VHF radio. So quite brave.
Very brave, actually. I think we've got some pictures from those days, and it must have been a wonderful life. Just as I said, now is that you with your father?
Yeah, so that's before he built the boat we lived on, but because I was 10 when he built the boat. But yeah, I mean, it was idyllic, but it was also, I mean, you know, like I say, no amenities, no running water, those things. You had to learn to be adaptable and to, you know, when you're at sea, because we didn't just stay in Bermuda, we sailed across the Atlantic, we sailed to the Caribbean, and yeah, that's me with my guitar. That's when I really started writing songs, actually, because you're on a 40-foot boat with 2 siblings and a dog and a cat and nowhere to go. So music became my space. I would go on deck and just get into my own world.
It feeds the muse, I suppose, doesn't it? I mean, I'm 21 from the outside. It just looks wonderful. There you are. Yeah, you have lovely pictures of you from those days. Aren't they lovely? Were you a happy family on board? I suppose you had to get off. There wasn't much space to argue.
We had no joy. Yeah, we were very close. I mean, I have a wonderful family. I'm very, very grateful. And I remember sometimes when you'd set out on a long sea journey, especially when I was a teenager, and I think, oh my God, how am I going to do 2 weeks without, you know, when we sailed across to the Azores? And there's a kind of harmony that happens, and maybe it's just out of necessity. But you get in tune with the elements, and just, you know, you take your watch and you find your own space, whether it's within music or reading a book or drawing, and it's actually wonderful.
So did you go to school on the island, or did they, and then they timed, your parents sort of timed when they would go away, or what? How did you do lessons?
I went to school here up until we left on the boat, and then we had no school. Well, we tried a correspondence course, but it wasn't too successful with having our mom as a teacher. So we ended up actually one day throwing the books in the water, and just from that day on, my mom had us read a lot of books and write book reports and study the history of the islands that we visited, and just stay. You know, I mean, there's so much to be learned just from experience, and I think.
Oh, here, absolutely. But then somewhere along the line, you did have to hunker down, I suppose, and you had to do something, because in the end, you did get a big break and you got a record deal. How did you get noticed? What happened?
So I went to art school in the States, and actually, you know, did painting and filmmaking. But by the end of college, you know, I realized I have this thing in me. I'm writing songs. I want to sing, and I was actually escaping a very possessive ex-boyfriend, and decided to go to London to stay with a girlfriend there. And just took my guitar and a duffel bag and didn't leave until 12 years later. I just, you know, I started playing gigs just with my acoustic guitar. And I was lucky enough through one of those gigs to meet my manager, who was a young ex-punk rock singer who was very grassroots, and just said, hey, you know, we're going to do this organically. Just put a band together, play shows. And that's really great, because I built up a following in a very natural way. And I started touring in Europe, and because it was right there. And yeah, I got a record deal through that, and then was signed to Sony in America through the UK deal, and it just took off. And I was really lucky. And we were talking before we went on air about MTV, and you know, one of my songs was a hit on MTV. And I started playing the festivals. I was known as a live act, and I had a cello along with you know, electric guitars, and it was kind of interesting.
You play the violin as well, don't you?
I started out on the violin, yeah.
So it must have been an interesting evening sometimes on that yacht.
Oh, there was a moment, actually, I should tell you about. It was one of the most amazing times at sea when we saw a pod of whales in the distance. And my mother said, "Oh, Heather, I read in National Geographic that whales like music. Why don't you go up with your violin on the deck and play?" So I was like, okay, that sounds a bit crazy, but I did. I went up and I started playing my Vivaldi piece. And the whales came around the boat and were swimming around the boat, and I'll never forget it. That was magical. I think animals absolutely respond to music. My dog will come and sit right next to me when I'm singing, and yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. I love it. You wouldn't get that at any ordinary school, would you? So there you were. It worked. And in a way, you're communing with nature again, and that's very much what you're about. Your first major album then was called Oyster.
Mm-hmm.
And the one you've just brought out is called Pearl. So you're going to have to explain the meanings behind this. Or was there a meaning particularly at that time?
Yeah, there was. I mean, Oyster was my breakout album. It was quite a rock record, but with the cello. And then 10 albums later, I went back and worked with the same producer and put together a very similar band, a very similar sound. And I sort of thought I was revisiting that energy, but as I am today. And so I thought, well, a pearl is what forms in the oyster with all the sand and the grit and the experience over time. And so that was my thought behind that.
Yeah, it's about growth, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And perhaps even rebirth, I don't know. So what was the music industry like in the 90s? I mean, it's always tough, but I seem to remember the 90s as being a bit cutthroat in the music business, wasn't it?
Yes, it was cutthroat. That's a good word for it. And especially in London, where I feel like the press was really tough and quite cynical. And so that was probably what raised my game. I think that I had to leave, it's like being in a small town. I had to leave the island to get as good as I could be, because the competition was great, but it was also exciting in London. I mean, you could go down the road and just see fantastic bands and artists. And I have to say, it's quite fun interviewing with you, because I was, that was when you were on Breakfast.TV in the 90s. And, we artists were always watching Breakfast.TV, the later half of it, because we didn't go to work.
You didn't get up too early. No, I remember that. Yes, it was a very vibrant scene. And in those days, it wasn't so cynical that you couldn't get stars actually in to the studio, although they were very often tired and a little bit hungover, but sometimes you could get them to play the piano or the guitar as well. It's a shame we didn't meet then. Who did you meet in those days? Because as you say, London was absolutely brimming full of people. You must have found yourself at festivals and on stages with sort of interesting characters.
Oh, I mean, so many, and especially the festivals, like you say, because you'd be in the backstage area, the VIP section, with all the other artists in their dressing rooms. And I mean, I opened for Neil Young, I opened for Bob Dylan, I opened for Van Morrison, for Patti Smith. So and usually I was too shy actually to speak to them, because I was a little starstruck by them, but it's such an honor. Yeah.
When you do open for people like that, I mean, I guess it varies from star to star, but do they become friendly with you, or are they just completely kept in their own dressing rooms by their own people?
I mean, yes, usually it's that. And I remember when I was opening for Neil Young, that was in Berlin, and I was so excited that I would get to meet him. He literally drove up right before his set, walked onto the stage, and walked right off into his car, and left. So didn't get to meet Neil Young, but
that's really annoying. But I guess in some posters and things like that, your name will be alongside his, which must be.
Absolutely. I did meet Van Morrison. He was lovely. I met Patti Smith.
Yeah.
So.
And they're legends, aren't they? I mean, that's cool.
Absolutely.
We've got some lovely photographs from you playing all over the world, really. I must say you're very photogenic, but they look so cool and lovely. All these various, I don't know if you can remember the locations, but some of these spots are very artistic.
Bermuda, and that was taken by a local photographer. That was when I made a video here, taken by Sasha Blackburn. Yeah.
Very artistic. I just wonder how much input you have to the photographs themselves. Is that any studio anywhere, I suppose, almost that one, but you certainly look as though you're enjoying yourself.
Oh, I love being in the studio. That was in Youth's studio in Spain with the recent album, actually.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
See what else we've got. Oh, now that's very you, isn't it?
That's at home here with my little dog. Yep.
That's home where you are? Is that outside where you are now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, looks brilliant. And we've got your latest album, then, Pearl. So if you were going to describe it to somebody who doesn't know your music particularly well, but just maybe heard a smattering now, and we'll hear some in a few moments' time, how would you describe what Pearl is about?
I think that I'm at my essence a folk singer, but I put this record is back to my rock early 90s roots, so there's some rocking songs on there, but the songs that I write are always emotive, I would say, and full of hope, even when they're melancholy, and songs about this is an uplifting record, this one, though. It's about falling in love again, so after having been divorced. So it's a good record.
Oh, congratulations, if that's about you. Congratulations. It's nice to hear. Tell me the story about the yacht, or what I called earlier the yacht, because it was called Moon, wasn't it, the boat your father built? Tell me the story that came about later when you were taken back, I think, by a local fisherman to where Moon is now lying under the sea. What happened?
Well, very sadly, Moon sank in a storm after my parents had sold her after my dad couldn't sail anymore due to his shoulders. And so she sunk in a storm on a reef off Bermuda. And it was many years after that I was in the supermarket and a fisherman came up to me and said, I want you to know I dove on your old home, Moon, and we found the compass that was still bolted to the deck, and I'd like to give it to you. And I think I was just started crying in the middle of the supermarket. It was such an emotional moment, and he said, and I could take you out to see where she is buried, so to speak. And so my ex-husband and my son and I all went out on this very choppy day, and he took us out, and we looked through the water, and we could just see the outline of the hull, and it was it was so emotional for me because it really is a boat. They give boats a gender. It's a she, right? And it really is like this being that carries you safely over oceans. Oh gosh.
That's all right. Don't worry. I'm glad it's you and not me. It's happened to me before.
Huh? Okay.
But when you went out and you were able to swim, did you actually swim over?
I didn't swim. It was a rough day, and we just looked over the side, and we could see the outline of the hull, and it was just it was like being at a grave site or something, and it was very emotional. So I was then propelled into writing almost an entire album about reflecting back on my life on Moon and what it meant, and so these are the life experiences that can often trigger or inspire an album. Starts from one little experience.
Well, that boat, and beautifully called Moon, helped make you what you are as well. So it must have been quite emotional, as you say. So the album that came from that experience, or at least started to, is 300 Days at Sea.
That's right. Yeah. And
there's a song on it which I thought, I wonder if I'm going to be able to hear it, because it starts very emotional, but I thought it's such a lovely song. I wondered if everybody watching would like to hear it too. It's called Everything Changes, and you're singing it now in this track we're hearing. You're singing it just recently, I think, with your acoustic guitar.
Yeah, a few years ago, but that is recorded here at my home, so it's appropriate. It's a Bermuda.
But it's a lovely song, and if everybody listens carefully to the words as well, I think they'll get where I come from too. It is very emotional, but absolutely gorgeous. Let's listen.
Thank you.
Last time you were here, I lost a baby. Nothing was clear, everything maybe. Songs I have sung deep in the silence, nobody finds hope in defiance. Everything changes for the good, Even the pain hurts like it should. Everything moves, shadows to light. Heart becomes whole when you give up the fight. Once a long time ago, you were a girl, path undecided, sails unfurled. I could have known you then, followed you here, swam in the lake with you, making it clear. Everything changes, changes for the good. Even the pain hurts like it should. Everything moves, shadows to light. Heart becomes whole when you give up the fight. I feel no hate. I feel no weight. I feel the truth of what this takes. I feel no hate. I feel no weight. I feel the truth of what this takes. You're lost in the silence now, deep in my heart. I'm hiding again, but I don't know how to start. Look out to the ocean where the green turns to blue. Crack in the sadness, the light filters through. Everything changes, changes for the good. Even the pain hurts like it should. Everything moves, shadows to light. Heart becomes whole when you give up the fight.
Are some songs almost too difficult to sing live?
Yeah, in fact, I wrote a song about my son growing up and how that feeling of how they need to separate from you, and I really had to work on singing that without crying before I could go live with it. So sometimes that does happen, yeah.
Not surprised. In 2005, then, you released an EP called Together as One to help raise funds for the Bermuda Sloop Foundation. Now, what's all that about?
So the Bermuda Sloop Foundation is just an absolutely fantastic program that was started here by Malcolm Kirkland and Alan Berland. And the idea was to build a traditional sailing vessel to educate Bermuda school children on sailing and Bermuda's history. And it's just the most fantastic program that they have in all the schools. Every kid in Bermuda gets the chance to spend a week on the spirit of Bermuda. And I just loved this initiative. And they asked if I would write a song, and it was a wonderful thing, inspiring song to write.
So on to another video I wanted to play to everybody. This is from Pearl, and this is The Wounds We Bled. And again, very, very poetic. If you listen to the words, quite raw sometimes. What was the thinking behind it?
Thank you for listening to the words, by the way. That's nice. That
Yeah, I love the words. See, I love Joni Mitchell and Cat Stevens, so I love to listen to the words.
Yeah,
I want my singer to be a poet as well.
Lovely. No, so the words in this one, this is actually about my divorce, this song, and it's in this kind of way of acceptance and realizing that this had to come about, and that sometimes we go through these difficult changes in order to find ourselves in a new way and to evolve, and so it's kind of a philosophical song.
It is. It is. It's well, everybody can listen to it now, and listen especially to the words.
We don't decide, but we do. We take the splinters, drive them through. We took the road all painted blue. We needed to.
Oh, Heather, I just wonder, well, I asked you earlier if it was difficult to actually sing some songs. Is it also cathartic to write some songs if they're coming from inside of you?
Absolutely. And I find the whole process so uplifting because, early on in my career, I learned the biggest lesson about songwriting. I wrote a song about having been through domestic violence, which was the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I wrote the song thinking, I'm just writing this for myself. I need to write it. And what happened was it turned out to be a pretty good song. And I decided to take that risk and put it on my album. And I got so many messages and letters from fans saying, thank you. Thank you for writing this about this experience. And it made me realize that the truth doesn't only set us free, but it can set others free too. And that's what music is all about, is sharing our experience of being human, even the raw stuff and the difficult stuff. That's what we have to do. We have to take that risk and share those things, because that's what connects us all. And that's what makes music really valid.
I get you. I'll bet you get letters and social media messages and things like that from people who've actually benefited from hearing you.
Absolutely, and that's what motivates me to keep going. I'm always going to write songs, but that's what keeps me releasing them and touring, is that there is this amazing connection made. And when people tell me what a song has meant in their lives, and I get those stories all the time, I never get tired of that. It's incredibly humbling and inspiring. Yeah.
And that must also be wonderful for you when you actually do go on tour. And the tour that's been put off now because of COVID is you try and start it again in October, I think, aren't you?
All fingers crossed for that. Yes, hoping it's going ahead if things get better. It's a European tour, so
European, is it? Oh, great.
Yeah.
And you get immediate feedback then as well.
And that's wonderful, yeah. And I started out being very shy with the crowd. I was so free and to express myself while singing. I used to say to my band members, okay, just go quickly to the next song each time, because I was like a rabbit in the headlights in between the songs. I didn't know what to say to this giant crowd. And I found out later that people thought I was unfriendly because I didn't talk to the crowd, and I was devastated by that. So I started to learn to overcome that fear. And then I started to go out after the shows and meet people at the merch stand. And that just changed my life, because that's when I started getting the direct feedback. And I realized this is what it's all about, Of course, you get that just singing live. You get the energy. Yeah. You get that. And you see the faces. And you see, I remember I went to Tel Aviv a few years ago. I'd never been there. I'd already had a 20-year career. And I played to 1,000 people, and they were all singing along to my songs. And I thought, gosh, here's a place far away I've never been to. And my music has preceded me, and people have had my songs in their lives. And that was just incredible.
Yeah, music travels well, doesn't it? Even during COVID. What is life like for you now? You are obviously happy. There's a relaxation that emanates from you. I hope that's true, because you certainly feel that way.
Well, I searched all over the world when I first was touring in the 90s. I thought, I'm going to find the most perfect place to live and settle down. And it's like one of those allegories. I ended up coming back to where I started from, because, and I had my son, Sebastian, here in 2004. And since then, I've just felt so rooted and grounded in the best way. And I'll never leave. It's home. And I think that brings me a kind of peace. And my family's nearby, and I like that.
You belong there. You look as though you belong there. I'm glad that life is good. I'm glad you've got a son called Sebastian, because so have I. There's lovely pictures. We have lots and lots of questions. Well, first of all, the main question from everybody is, tell us about Bermuda, because I think probably a lot of people watching right now are planning their next cruise and want to come. What can they expect from Bermuda? Sell it to us.
Oh, fantastic. You may have heard this quote before, but Mark Twain, who used to come here and actually spend a lot of time in Bermuda, said, "You can go to heaven if you like. I'd rather stay in Bermuda." And that really says it all. You can see, it's like somewhere over the rainbow. You see bluebirds flying through the air, and there are flowers everywhere, and it's heavenly. And I think my tip to people coming to Bermuda is just get out on the water, get out walking. There's an old railway trail, because in the 40s, 50s, I think it was, there was a train that ran the length of Bermuda, and now it's a walking and cycling trail, and it's just gorgeous. And you get out there, and you're in the lovely, soft, sweet air, and you get a real sort of insider view of the neighborhoods and things, and that would be my tip. And of course, the ocean, and get out on a boat if you can. Because that's what Bermuda is all about to me, is the natural beauty.
It is. Oh, look at that. That's the Viking Orion there. as I say, dipping its toe in the water at the moment. A number of your albums have been recorded, I'm told, using solar energy, which of course you've got a lot of, but that is a deliberate move on your part?
Well, absolutely. It's basically recorded in my home, those albums, and we are solar powered here at the house. So everything, my fridge is solar powered. My everything, yeah.
Be a bit crazy,
I just believe we have to do what we can, and especially being here, you're so aware of conserving nature, and yeah, when you can harness the sun like this, absolutely do it.
So have you got a studio in your house, or do you just pick up the guitar and play in your favorite room when you're recording something?
Yeah, I don't have a studio here. We did have a studio. My ex-husband is an engineer producer, so we had a studio. Now I just have the basics, and so like for when I made my last record, I went overseas to record. And now if I do any recordings here, I actually go to my ex-husband's studio. So,
another question, do you have a favorite song or album that you are most proud of and which means the most to you personally?
That's a tricky question. I think it's like choosing between your children or something, because they all really embody different periods of my life, and so I'm attached to them in different ways, and no, I can't say.
Okay, another question here then is, what music do you love to listen to now? And are there any Bermudian artists you would recommend?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I started doing this in conjunction with the Bermuda Festival here, this annual songwriter contest, which has been really wonderful because I'm trying to inspire young writers here. And, so I've discovered some fantastic young writers. So one to watch, I would say, is Hannah Bouchara. She's the singer-songwriter here. There are other artists who are more established, Joy Barnum. My Kind is a great entertainer, ukulele player who plays at several venues around the island. And then there's my brother, who's also a singer-songwriter, but he isn't based in Bermuda. He's living in Maui, actually, but he, also ended up being an artist, a recording artist. So Mishka is his name.
You did your parents proud by the sound of it. You really did. They obviously had that sort of that artistic flair about it themselves, and I love the idea of throwing the books in the sea and saying, let's just learn about life. And it's well, hasn't it? It's been absolutely lovely to meet you. It really has, and I think it's made us all very, very envious of your life and lifestyle. But of course, we can catch a flavour of it ourselves when we come to Bermuda. So thank you so much for selling Bermuda to us. It is sold. Done your job well. Thank you very, very much. Lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you too, Anne.
Thank you. Well, there you go. Let me just say that next week on Viking.TV, it's French week, and my guest is going to be the fashion expert Charlotte Smith. Now, Charlotte is the custodian of the Darnell collection, which is a collection of vintage pieces, and she's a fashion anthropologist. She's going to be showing us some of the beautiful historic pieces by French designers from her collection. But before we let you go, shall we leave you with a beautiful, beautiful song from Heather, which hopefully sort of sums up her great attitude to life and maybe should be an attention for us all. This song is called Beautiful Ride. You're going to love it.
this beautiful ride. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, you and I circle in the same sky. You and I can fly side by side on this beautiful ride. It's a beautiful ride. As long as we're living, it's a beautiful ride. I don't mind if you're winning. It's a beautiful ride. Look out your window. It's a beautiful ride. It's a beautiful ride. Beautiful ride. It's a beautiful ride. As long as we're living. It's peace and forgiving. Yeah.